So it is now my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker for today's session, Ben Bollard, Chief Information Officer at Communify. Ben is in his 9th year at Communify, initially working as their IT manager part-time while studying his master's. 4 years ago, Ben became Communify's Chief Information Officer. We had the opportunity to connect with Ben recently at our Community Services Data Collaborative workshop, and Ben has been kind enough to volunteer to speak to you all today to discuss Communify's data systems, how they are used to collectively measure diverse program outcomes, and the organisation's challenges and future plans. So I'll hand it over to Ben now. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks so much, Amy. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk today. I'm just going to share my screen now, just so I can presentation. Okay, so I just wanted to start by just talking through Communify and giving a little bit of an overview of what we do as an organisation. So Communify originated in 1978. It was when a small group of local residents formed the Red Hill Paddington Community Centre over on Caxton Street in Petrie Terrace. So the purpose of the centre was to provide activities, support and advocacy services for locals. Our long-standing CEO, Karen Dare's vision continues to be to create a one-stop shop for our clients where we provide place-based wraparound supports throughout the challenges that life presents. We have quite a streamlined structure where managers and team leaders are empowered to think creatively and entrepreneurially to respond to local issues and needs in our community. Currently, we have approximately 200 staff. We have over 300 volunteers and 12,500 clients. As I mentioned earlier, we manage a diverse portfolio of services. It's predominantly in the inner north and northwest region of Brisbane. We support children and families through to aged care, so literally all throughout life. We also provide mental health, homelessness and other specialty community services. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the number of programs that we have in our organisation, which is it's now over 20 programs. There's a couple of key domains that these programs sit under. So we've got community programs, which includes our Heart 4000 homelessness service in Fortitude Valley. We have 3 neighbourhood centres, which are drop-in centres. We also have community participation and community care and a sustaining tenancies program. Under mental health and disability, we deliver NDIS support coordination and core supports. We have a mental health hub at Barden, which is called the Recovery and Discovery Centre. We also have our Springboard Drug and Alcohol Recovery Day Rehab program and a number of other mental health programs as well. In aged care, we have our regional assessment service. We also offer in-home services through Commonwealth Home Support Program, and we have quite a number of clients with aged care packages. We have a Paddington Respite Centre, Home Assist Secure, and also community transport. So, you know, wraparound services, I guess, to support clients throughout the aged care. Our multicultural programs has been a big focus from our board. So we support asylum seekers and refugees. We also have housing, a number of units for clients in this cohort. And we're part of Asylum Circle, which is a consortia of similar organisations supporting asylum seekers in the community. We also have a childcare centre and we have our intensive family support program as well. So that's where the children and family services side of things comes in. And we manage a number of properties which we provide for housing in the community as well. So you can see that there's quite diversity in the programs, which does make it tricky from a data perspective because all of these programs have different funding, regulatory requirements, reporting requirements. So from a data and systems perspective, it is tricky and it certainly has been a challenge to ensure that we can capture the diverse amount of work that we do. So I just wanted to go through a couple of things from our strategic plan. I'm not obviously going to present our whole strategic plan, so don't worry, but I just wanted to talk about some of the IT elements from our strategic plan. So our strategic plan was recently reset in 2020, so last year, and obviously technologies continue to play a part in our strategic plans over the last 9 years or so since I've worked with Communify, and so certainly our current strategic plan has really identified technology as a key requirement for our organisational success and sustainability. We are an agile and innovative organisation, and we try to be an early adopter of technology wherever possible. We also work collaboratively with various sector partners and are committed to sharing our learnings. And that's certainly something that's come through from our CEO, who's very much got a community development sense of practice. And I think that all of the staff, particularly on the corporate team, really engage with that as well. So our board and CEO are very much committed to blue sky thinking, and we're willing to invest in technology initiatives to enhance our service delivery and internal processes. We have significant financial delegations that allow a degree of autonomy and decision making to ensure that a best fit solution can be put in place. So that definitely makes my job a little bit easier, which is great. So I'm just going to go through, I thought it might be interesting just to see, it certainly hasn't been a race. As Amy mentioned earlier, I have been with Communify for 9 years, and certainly throughout that period, we have gone from using spreadsheets and paper-based, record management through, we obviously did have IT systems in place, but a lot of our programs use those through to where we are today. So back in 2012, 2013, I was initially tasked with looking at a solution to put in place a client management system. So that involved a lot of vendor assessments and meetings with different vendors, talking with other community organisations, and I guess working through the different options. So we ended up selecting Procura for this particular purpose. We also put in place an intranet for the organisation, which was based on the SharePoint platform, which we call Communicate. So 2014 was all about infrastructure. We put in place, we had to upgrade our server infrastructure from Windows Small Business Server. We moved to, at the time, Server 2012, which is Microsoft's operating system. At the time, it was the latest operating system. We also migrated our email to Exchange 2013, and we implemented terminal services to help with application management and also enable us to have remote access for our staff. And we also commenced with direct debit payments. So that was really the start of trying to get rid of cash. We are pretty much there now, but it has taken quite a while across all of our programs because of the nature of the client base we have. We do still offer cash payments in certain areas, but probably about 95% of us now is all direct debit. 2015 was definitely all about the Commonwealth Home Support reforms. So we had to redesign Procura to meet the regulatory reporting requirements associated with that. So moving through to 2016, this was I guess the start of developing a strategy around our data warehouse. So this year was quite important. I worked closely with a solutions architect, and we started to set a strategic plan around developing a warehouse and looking at the future. So making sure that all of our systems that we selected had open APIs that could consolidate data into one location. So that was definitely a pivotal year. We also rolled out a HR system, which is called Connex. And that particular system was also the front end for our timesheeting and all of our HR information services. From an IT perspective, my team, we put on an additional staff member, and we also put on a help desk solution called Landsweeper, and we also implemented a PRTG for network monitoring and alerting and that type of stuff. So just making sure that our infrastructure was secure. And also, excitingly, we launched our online venue booking system. So I didn't mention earlier, but we manage about 23 halls for hire in Brisbane. And up until this point, the bookings had to be done manually. We did have a system, but it wasn't an online system. So this now enables us to self-serve those bookings and significantly reduce the administrative burden on staff. So moving through to 2017, this year we rolled out our Procura Mobility app. So this was about allowing our in-home support staff to, they didn't necessarily need to come into the office anymore. They could work straight from home and go out and visit the clients and have their schedules and rosters, which was definitely a game changer for us, particularly as we're moving more and more into consumer-directed care and having, build for service models as well. That definitely helps, and it was a big change management exercise as well. Around that, we also obviously had to implement a mobile device management tool so we could manage the fleet of mobile phones that we had. And this year also involved the home care package reforms. So this was new business for us, which was about, a change from block funding for aged care. And having the systems in place really helped us to be able to, look at the invoicing, the billing side of thing. We also rolled out MyOBXO, which was a new financial system to, deal with the growth that we had in the business. And we established an MPLS network, which was a more reliable and higher speed network across the 8 sites that we operated at the time. So 2018 and 19, we had NDIS, which has been loads of fun. We had MicroPay Payroll, which is a new payroll system. And this coincided with linking our Procura client management system to our HR system and to MicroPay. So we had integration straight from the mobile app. So our field workers or frontline staff will start and stop their mobile app when they're in the client's home, and that time and any kilometers that they travel comes through to our payroll systems and ultimately into finance. So there was that real integration, end to end, which has made a lot of those administrative functions a lot more streamlined. We also migrated our telephony to cloud PABX, and we replaced our handsets with soft phone, which has really come in handy with COVID and all of the changes we've had in the last 18 months. And excitingly, we also launched our Better Impact volunteer management system. So as I mentioned before, we have about 300 volunteers, which are often changing and coming in and out. So this helps with recruitment and the quality and training side of our volunteer management. So last year, we rolled out our Ferret document management, which was our accounts payable automation system. So this is now pretty much reduced the paper that we have in finance. So this system basically intercepts the emails that come through with invoices for payment, and it comes straight through to an approval system, which has workflows around it. So that we don't have to sign paper, or all of the approvals are done in a system, and there's an audit trail as well. So it's been a real game changer for the finance team. And we're a little bit late to the party, but we finally rolled out and migrated to Office 365 last year. So that's obviously been on our agenda for many years, and it's helped us get the Microsoft tools in place that we want to continue with the cloud strategy. This year has probably been the biggest year so far. Even though we're already 9 months through it, but we have finally built the data warehouse that we talked about back in 2016. So far we've integrated our HR, payroll, and our 3 CRMs, which is Procura, SRS, and Readycase, into the data warehouse. We have also launched Communicate version 2.0, which is our new intranet page. And we've developed some strategic and operational business planning tools alongside that, as well as a risk management system. And we've also automated a number of other manual systems that were still in place in the organization, things like forms and that type of stuff. We've also upgraded our quality management system as part of that project. So our quality and compliance and our auditing tools are all Power Forms in Microsoft and 365. And we've established a new board portal as well, which has been good, so that our board are also in the same system that we have. So we only have to have managed content in one place. And very recently, I've just launched the Moodle Learning Management System. So this is a consolidation of all of our training that we deliver in the organisation. We used to have disparate systems that staff had to log into to do their training, but now we have one place, and this also links to our HR system, so that all the achievement of the regulatory training, or even just training that's part of induction, is all marked as achieved, and their scores and grades come through to our HR system. So from an auditing perspective, it means we've only got to look in one place now, which is fantastic. And due in Q4 this year, we're rolling out a Power BI reporting interface. So I'll show you some reports a little bit later to show you we are starting to use those reports now, but I'm still in UAT for a number of them, so we haven't pushed them out to the whole organisation just yet. And as part of our next phase of telephony, we're migrating, and I'm currently in the process of configuring Zoom Phone. So as with all organisations at the moment, we're obviously using Zoom or Teams, significantly. So it made sense to integrate our telephony in that product. So in terms of, I guess, the objectives for next financial year, I just thought it'd be good to sort of paint a little bit of the picture of where we're heading, certainly in the short term. We want to integrate our finance system into MyRBXO. Our finance system into the data warehouse, which is MyRBXO. We're also in the process of assessing vendors for a client and family portal. So this will be a front end to Procura, which is our client management system. And it will enable our clients and family members to access their invoices, to request services, look at care plans and service plans, and request changes to those. So again, just hoping to increase our customer service through having some automated systems, but also reducing, phone calls and that type of stuff as well. We also want to expand our Power BI offering to capture our budget, profit and loss, and other financial reporting all in the same system. And continuing on, which I'll talk about later, is about building a robust interface to report on and track outcomes across all services, the variety of services that we have in the organisation. We're also in the process, actually, at the moment, of building a content library system to support our tender and grant applications. So we do apply for a lot of grants, so we're wanting to automate that in a system. To some extent. Obviously, we'll still need a lot of human interaction there, but just to at least consolidate all of the libraries that we have. And we're also wanting to continue to look at assistive technology, such as products for medication management, falls prevention, and vital monitoring. This is for our allied health and clinical team. So we do have some solutions in this space, but we're certainly starting to look at partnering with some other vendors to see how we can pilot some of these. So just to give you an overall picture, I guess, of what this looks like, I've just put together this little diagram. So we've got basically our 5 key domains. So we've got our IT, our information technology systems, which I mentioned earlier is about our network monitoring and our help desk. We've also got our client management systems, which is Procura, Redicase, and SRS. People and learning is the HR system. So we have Moodle, which is our learning management, Connex, HR, and then we have SharePoint, which is predominantly our quality management side of things, and also our intranet. And then we have our financial systems, which is those 3, MicroPay, Ferret, which is the accounts payable automation, and MyRBXO for the financials. So you can see from here that everything, the dream is for everything to feed into the data warehouse. And then over on the left-hand side, we've got Power BI, which is the reporting front end. So this is able to look at all this rich data and pull it together in meaningful ways that make sense for our organisation. So I thought it would be good also to just link this back a little bit to the client journey. So what I've just picked an aged care client. So this particular scenario, the technical acumen for this client is on the lower side. They absolutely want a reliable service, and they want us to translate the jargon, the My Aged Care jargon. So there's 4 different phases that we look at, and down the left-hand side, I've also put the key systems. So we've got the financial systems, Procura, and My Aged Care. So in terms of intake and assessment, that spans both My Aged Care and Procura. And then we move on to service and care planning and internal referral to different services. So that all sits in Procura in our organisation. Once we go across to service delivery, scheduling is all done through Procura. And then we've got invoicing and statements and employee time and attendance, which spans both Procura and our financial systems. Then we move on to phase 3, which is about reviewing, assessing, and resetting goals. So we have generally biannual reviews for our aged care clients, and we look at program-specific outcomes measurement tools, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So both of those things are done through Procura. And phase 4, it depends on the client. Obviously, if someone moves to residential, we don't do residential, so we'll absolutely work with them to plan and the closure of the service. Or if they exit for any other reasons, then that's handled potentially through My Aged Care and Procura. And all of these phases are underpinned by various tools to listen to the client, what they're saying, their feedback. So we use the ASCOT to measure outcomes, which is the Adult Social Care Outcomes Toolkit. We also receive a variety of mechanisms for client feedback, compliments and complaints, social media sentiment, and there's other metrics and KPIs that are part of service delivery. So all of that completes the picture for our clients and ensures that we can respond to any feedback and adjust our service delivery accordingly. So I just wanted to put a couple of slides in as well, just to show you the types of things that we're doing in our data warehouse. So this is an example of a heat map that we're using just to identify where our clients are. And obviously the larger the circle is the bigger the client base. As I mentioned earlier, we're predominantly in inner north and northwest of Brisbane, but we do have clients, you know, spread out as well. So that's an example of that. We use service output reports to track our contractual KPIs. So this is an important part of a number of our contracts. Obviously, we have to track the hours or the dollars in subsidy, or, you know, a variety of different measures that are stipulated in the service agreement. So in this particular top example, we're also looking at FTE for each program, what the outputs are for a particular period, and comparing that to the year-to-date target. And at the end, we've got, you know, whether we're green, tracking well, or red, not tracking so well. So that's one example report that we are currently using that to help with managing the outputs day to day. We also have other different views of that report around client contribution, and also looking at, you know, counts of visits, how many active clients, that type of thing. And on the right-hand side is an example of some graphs which look at, you know, target and actuals for a period, so that we can see how we're tracking against those. This next one has been a really important one, particularly for NDIS. So this is our billed versus paid report. So this particular one helps us look at the hours that we're billing our participants for NDIS, and also the hours that are being paid to the staff member, and we work out an efficiency percentage. So this helps us ensure that our workforce are working efficiently, and basically that we're sustainable. As I'm sure a lot of you know, NDIS is tricky, and this type of report ensures that we're achieving what we need to achieve to be a sustainable service. So these KPIs are part of the managers and team leaders' responsibility to ensure that their team are, you know, and work with their team to get them to achieve the KPIs that have been set for the program. Okay, so definitely it hasn't always been smooth sailing. We have had a lot of challenges, and I thought it'd be important to go through some of the lessons that I've learned over the last 9 years. It's no secret that major technology changes require a cultural shift. I think culture is so critical when you're putting in new systems, and it's certainly been integral for us, recognizing that it's not always, you know, everyone doesn't always, you know, embrace technology, but having buy-in across, you know, from the CEO, the board, and the corporate team has been really critical to, I guess, get people excited, engaged with technology. Staff training is a real challenge. Certainly with minimal resources, it requires greater flexibility from teams and also from project leads. Engaging staff while also learning yourself is a real challenge as well. Change fatigue is real. Staff, clients, and volunteers are all experiencing the effect of sector reform, client-directed care, and changes to funding models. Not all staff are tech savvy, which means we have to look at systems that are user-friendly, which is really important. Large investment, there is a large investment in technology, and it requires the staffing and consultancy expertise, and that's been critical for us, is that we have to ensure that our board's behind our decisions around technology. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. Business process re-engineering based on best practice products. This one, I think for us, particularly with Procura, it was a real opportunity for us to look at our business processes and work with a vendor who's worked with a number of big organizations, including Anglicare and Bluecare and, you know, other agencies, and sort of go, this is an opportunity for us to change our processes, we definitely took that opportunity up. It doesn't always mean their process or their approach is the best, but I think that it is, as a smaller organization, it's a real opportunity to consider that. Consider the long-term IT requirements rather than the short-term lower cost solutions. So for us with Procura, it was a real leap of faith. It was a huge investment we had to make at the time. We had other solutions that were much cheaper, but at the end of the day, it was our CEO's view that we are much better placed to invest in a product that is being widely used. And then we know that we have that sustainable long-term investment. Purchase systems that have APIs and allow full access to database for integration and reporting. This one's been really critical. If we didn't have that, we would not be able to pull data out into a data warehouse and utilize that rich data that we have. One of the things that I've really noticed is that our sector is very attractive to startups and innovators that don't underestimate the proof of concept value that we can provide. However, be wary that free does not always mean best in the long run. So we've been really lucky to pilot some projects for some different solutions, internet, data network providers, telephony, and even looking at other solutions that connect in through Procura. But we've certainly had to really assess whether it's worthwhile us doing that. We're obviously offering our time, and it is going to provide a long-term solution for us. So we don't want to invest in something, or even if it's just time, if the long-term benefit isn't there. And I think just comprehensive due diligence really pays off. Take the time to assess vendors and solutions to ensure a successful outcome. As I said earlier, it's definitely not been a race for us. We've had a strategy in place, and I think that has really stood the organization in a good stead. So the next part of my presentation is probably what you're all wanting to hear about, is talking about outcomes measurements. So we have, as I mentioned before, we've got a number of programs. We have about 27 measurement tools that we use across our business. A lot of these tools are around our mental health programs, but we do have a number of tools that we use, and basically every program has an outcomes measurement tool. At this stage, as I mentioned earlier, this is a big space for us. We're not there yet in terms of using this data as widely as we want to be, but we started with, let's actually capture the data in an electronic format that's stored in a database so that we can, over time, build Power BI reports to actually look at holistically, how things are tracking across our client base. So we've got about 27 measurement tools. There's also just basic things like program surveys and staff and volunteer surveys. And then we try to utilize, we've either got programs that stipulate the outcome measurement tool, or we've gone with ones that are well known and backed by research. So as an example, I'll talk about the aged care space. And for this particular part of our organisation, we have selected the ASCOT, which is the Adult Social Care Outcomes Toolkit. So this ASCOT has, it's not a huge questionnaire, but basically it has a number of questions which sort of look at the quality of life domains for a client. We conduct this biannually as part of our regular review process. And our data is consolidated and sent to PHN Brisbane North for analysis. So we're in a consortia for our Commonwealth Home Support Program with PHN Brisbane North. So currently we send the data to them, and then they consolidate it across the consortia, which gives us a really good benchmark of how we're doing as a whole. But they also compare the data to, they've got a subset of data that comes through from New South Wales, which gives us, again, a nice baseline to see how we're tracking as a consortia. So the analysis that they end up sending us back includes, I think it's about 20 pages, 25 pages of data, but there's a lot of graphs and narrative around how we're tracking. It has summary data. So for example, on this figure 4 on the left-hand side, it's around the social care related quality of life domain. And if you look at the top, it's very small, but the top section is clients with high needs in that area. The blue section is clients in the ideal state. So we're sort of looking, 60 to 80% down to 50% in this case. And it just helps us as a consortium look at what we're doing and delivering and try and, where possible, determine what we can do service delivery wise to improve those results. And then on the right-hand side, this is around reported levels of dignity, and we're comparing our consortia with the ACOM data from New South Wales to see where we're tracking from an industry perspective. So I guess I wanted to give a bit of a practical example of how it looks. So an elderly gentleman on a level 2 package indicated through the initial assessment that he had reduced mobility and was no longer driving, therefore was experiencing social isolation, loneliness and depression. The client was linked into the transport service, group social activities and Communify's culture club. At the 6-month ASCOT review, he reported a significant improvement in wellbeing through social connections, and he had reported that he'd made new friends. Using baseline tools such as the ASCOT helps to identify the needs and measure the effectiveness of the supports offered. The ASCOT data set allows us to identify any trends across our client base, which informs new service offerings and support. So you can see that on the right-hand side, these are the questions that would look, sorry, I'll just go back. These are the questions that would look at that particular domain, which is around social situation and how you spend your time. And then in the PHN sort of assessment view, it looks at social participation and involvement across our sector. So what we're wanting to do at an organisational level is start to do our own analysis of our data. But this particular project or, outcomes that we've looked at has helped us to look at what the types of measures and the types of analysis that we could potentially do in the future. So some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment with outcomes measurements, as I mentioned, we capture a huge amount of data, but we don't have the interfaces built yet to analyze this over the long term. Absolutely, we use this data at the client level. If, when those assessments are done, this data is used to help the goal planning, the care planning and development of service plans. And certainly at reviews as well, we're looking at how we're tracking. But what we're not doing across all services is looking at that at a holistic level across all of our programs, but also across a number of clients to see those type of benchmarks. We know that we do well, but it's still difficult to demonstrate this impact that our programs have on the clients we support. How do we demonstrate to our clients, families and the board the great work we do as an organisation and as a sector? So this is a big push for us to look at these outcomes measurement tools to help do that. We've got to balance the regulatory, clinical and funding compliance whilst expanding our services to better cater to the evolving needs of our clients. So, we still have to work within the bounds of our service agreements and the programs and the expectations that are set from our funding bodies. How can we use our data to better predict client needs and expand our service offerings? And how do we use data to demonstrate the breadth and effectiveness of our work? We're currently using Power BI to build user-friendly reporting dashboards that will showcase our successes. So this is an ongoing thing, but that's the hope that we can really do that. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope I haven't bored everyone, but I'd really love to answer any questions if anyone's got anything they'd like to ask me.
Hey, Ben, that was really great. I do have a couple of questions to get started. There's organizations generally always experience a challenge with getting people to complete that, the pre and the post. What are the completion rates like at Communify and has that been a challenge for you?
Look, we definitely do have some clients who wish to opt out, and that's probably more so in the our community programs, particularly. And I think some of the challenges, even with neighbourhood centres, is data capture. Absolutely. So we do have to have a degree of flexibility. For aged care in particular, with the ASCOT, we've had really great engagement. To my knowledge, I don't know of anyone who wasn't willing to engage. Sometimes we'll end up with a carer filling it out on behalf of the client. But certainly the aged care space, we've had really good engagement. I think that if I think about Springboard, which is our drug and alcohol rehab day program, it's very much, there's a lot of data and a lot of assessments that are done. So I think it's all in the way the facilitators approach it and work with the clients. So we've got tablets, we've got paper forms, we've got, you know, the ability for them to send in their information from home, you know, on an online form. So I think it's just having different avenues as helped. Cool. Any other questions? Anything anyone wants to know?
Yeah, hi Ben, it's Paul here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, from IFYS. Yeah, very interesting. Enjoyed your presentation. It's very relevant to my work. So I guess we're embarking on in the Power BI space as well. Looks like you've done a lot of work with your warehouse and bring things together as well. I'm just wondering what your, I guess your team makeup and your structure is to sort of make that happen, and how you brought it all together.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Thanks, Paul. So we currently have, so I've got a senior systems administrator and an IT support worker who predominantly focus on the help desk. So at this stage, we've got 3 staff. So it is busy, but we do partner with, so we've started partnering with Navigi, who are a consultancy firm that really look at aged care, and they've been really good to work with the data warehouse side of things. So I absolutely needed to get expertise in this space. Yeah, so, and then we don't tend to use too many consultants for infrastructure, but we have from time to time for various projects like Office 365, we did engage a third-party partner to assist with that. But yeah, predominantly we do manage it in-house. We've been lucky enough to get some good, a solutions architect I worked with back in 2016 actually came on board just for a couple of months voluntarily. So he'd done some amazing projects with urban utilities and other big government agencies, and just wanted to sort of give his time. So that's been really fantastic. And again, I've just tried to really work with other organizations over the years to, you know, build capacity and share knowledge, and that's really helped as well. So
awesome, thank you.
no worries. Any other questions there?
Greg from Footprints. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Greg. How you going?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad.
Really good presentation, Ben. Pretty amazing. You've been able to snapshot like absolutely everything. It's really good to have that magnitude of like from 2013 to now. Everything what's happened is really, really good. Just something about you quality management system that you implemented. You said that you're using Office 365. Is that right?
Yes.
Just a bit like, can you maybe just expand a little bit more around that? That would be.
Yeah. So we've built, so with SharePoint, we have all of our audit tools, as an example, used to be paper, like they were electronic forms, but like PDFs that people had to go through and tick off. So we've now made them Power Forms, and that all filters down into a register, which our quality manager can basically get an overview of any non-conformities. But all of our policies, procedures, work instructions, and you know, the general quality managed data that we have in our organization is all in document libraries in SharePoint. And we also have the risk registers, which now we've got. So that's about looking at, so we have rolled up views for board or executive team that can see, you know, the risks across the organization. So with SharePoint, it's been good because you can, obviously you're only having to have information in one place, and then you can have various views that fit on top of that. And then obviously the version control, you know, it's all just natively built in. So, you know, that's about, you know, when policies are due for review, when forms are due for review, when, you know, all of that type of compliance side of things. Yeah, so that's basically where we're at in that space. So it's just been an extension on what we had originally, and we've now kind of, I guess, leveraged those Microsoft Power Forms and workflows to make that process work a little bit cleaner.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
No worries. Okay, so any other last questions that I can help with?
Ben, just a question. Hi, Stacey here from QCOST. Thank you for the presentation. Really good. A question around the, I guess, the influence that these progressions have made on your workforce and satisfaction with their work. Has being able to see some solid data and evaluation around the work that they're doing had much of an influence on their job satisfaction and how engaged they are with the outcomes of their work?
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. I think obviously in terms of measuring, we do staff satisfaction surveys. I must admit, I haven't necessarily tracked the staff satisfaction data against the initiatives that maybe we've had in a particular year. That would be kind of interesting to do. Certainly, we do get feedback around systems, and we've got our avenues where people can submit ideas, like our ideas and any initiatives that they think the organisation should look at. So we, as part of our corporate team, we review those each month when we meet. So that often filters down into operational planning or strategic planning. But I think on the ground, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of it's been a cultural shift. We've had challenges, initially a lot of, hesitancy for change and that type of thing was certainly around. But I think, it's all in the way we've sort of solved things. And I think, like particularly when we rolled out the mobility app, we sort of packaged it up with a phone, and we basically said to our staff, use the phone, use it as your personal phone. It's a perk. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't expect that this is a phone that we're providing you, and we're very happy for you to use this, for your own personal phone. And if that helps as an extra cost saving for you, then fantastic. So I think that helps them sort of see it as an opportunity rather than, oh, they're giving me this phone and they're tracking me and, all that type of stuff. And over time, obviously, they could see the benefits of, efficiency, not having to go into the office, at the start of the shift and that type of thing. And I think, managers and team leaders, obviously having the more data, the better. And we really want them to have data so that they can make decisions on the ground throughout the day that actually are backed up by data and information. So I think it's just a cultural thing. I wouldn't say we've had, huge outcries or anything like that. I think generally people have pretty well embraced it. And I think the benefits have certainly, for most people, I think have really outweighed any maybe additional. I mean, absolutely some systems and processes have had to change. And I think, in some cases there's been a little bit more that they have to do. But I think a lot of that's come with sector reform. So I think there's that frustration that still comes in. But yeah, I think on the whole, it's been pretty positive. And, hopefully that continues.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
I do have another question. QCOS has been doing a bit of work recently in regards to the digital divide and just understanding how people may end up being excluded because of lower digital literacy skills. So I'm just interested if you could talk more about you said that you were rolling out the client and family portal. Like, what would that actually look like? And have you considered, what programs you might have to put in place to ensure that people have those digital literacy skills to be able to access that, and there isn't a division between people who have those skills or not?
Yeah, for sure. So a good example, obviously with COVID sort of kicking in March last year, we started supplying clients with tablets with 4G SIMs. So we basically made the decision that, so with our aged care clients, I can't think of who it was, but we partnered with another agency that supplied us tablets, but certainly for our community care and our under 65 and NDIS clients, we, as an organisation, just basically sponsored that. So we bought a whole heap of tablets. I think we've probably got, I can't even remember the number, but I don't know, it might have been up to maybe 200 tablets at one point that we had. So basically anyone that didn't have connectivity on the internet, we sort of supplied them with tablets, and we call that the digital literacy program. So basically that was sort of part of our service delivery, I guess, in those community services areas. So it was about giving people an opportunity to engage with family and friends, but also our services when we were in lockdown. So I think that that has helped with improving the digital literacy for our client base. Absolutely. I mean, we ran, all of our exercise classes and, community activities over Zoom. So we had 90-year-olds, dialing in with their Zoom and their tablet, and we'd have a support worker that would sort of work with them around that where possible. So I think what I'm seeing is, and I've always had this notion that, it'd be so great if we could use SMS and, have clients engaged on a portal to be able to, get their information and request services. But, maybe, the aged care client base is just not there. But I actually think what COVID has done is forced people to kind of, upskill. And it's been something that we've just tried to continue, even though we're out of lockdown at the moment and things like that. But it's we still deliver programs over that option, and some participants actually prefer, that non-face-to-face, particularly if they're not feeling well or perhaps with mental health issues or whatever. Sometimes it's a soft entry for them. Yeah, so I think, I'm really interested in assistive technology, and it's something that we've talked about a lot. We've sort of had conversations with, a few different providers around that, and it's something that, I'd like to continue exploring. But I guess all we can do is really pilot and sort of work with our clients around that. But yeah, it's definitely been, I think there is certain element that's come through for COVID with, disadvantaged clients. And the other thing we do at the moment is we supply prepaid phones. So we're actually an Optus prepaid dealer now, which has been good because I can just get lots and lots of phones. So we've hundreds of phones, particularly for Heart 4000, because we need a way to contact our homeless clients when we can arrange temporary accommodation and that type of thing. So I think just having different avenues like that, and data is not that expensive anymore. And even tablets, like the Samsung tablets are, no more than $300, and it's a decent device. So I think it's just about flexible and using those flexible provisions in the funding where we can to support that. So.
All right, I do have one more question. With the rollout of Power BI, and you talked about the reporting interface that's coming, is that going, because you are using multiple systems like Readycase and Procura, will you be able to actually link the client data between those two systems to know that someone who's in Readycase and accessing this program is also accessing this program in another system?
Yeah, so it has been a little bit tricky, that part of it. And that's one of the things, I guess, when you have multiple funding streams, that you do have to sometimes accept that the funder might require a specific system. So with Readycase in particular, at this point, what we're pulling into the data warehouse is the rolled up data. But I do want to get to a point where we can pull that client level data in. At this point, we're not doing that. So we're just pulling, the summary rolled up data so we can track outputs and that type of stuff. But at the client level, the visit data or the, support instances, that's definitely something that we've had conversations around, and we've looked, and there is API potential integration there. We haven't quite got there yet with that. So. Awesome. Well, if anyone else has any other questions, really happy for you to reach out. Like I said, I'm really keen to collaborate in the sector. I mean, there's so many problems to solve. And thanks everyone for the opportunity to talk, and I'll hand it back over to Scott and Amy.